This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome into B-Town's continuing coverage of the impact of COVID-19 here in Rhode Island. I'm Bill Bartholomew. On today's episode, part one of Restaurant Week here on Bartholomew Town as we make our way around the state with Providence's White Electric, Newport's Salvation Cafe, and a Dunkin franchise in Bristol County. But first, it's time for B-Town News. A coalition of multicultural organizations are issuing a call to action to Governor Raimondo to provide vital funding and information regarding COVID-19 to communities of high-risk populations that face language barriers and many other challenges. Representative Anastasia Williams is concerned that the governor's reopening strategy leaves behind many of the state's most vulnerable.
She overlooks there's a blind spot that one size does not fit all. What works on Federal Hill, East Greenwich, Narragansett does not work on Broad Street, Elmwood Avenue, Cranston Street, and our little mom and pop's business.
DARE's managing director, Kia Bryan, is concerned about low-wage workers on the front lines.
I want us to really be thinking about the risk that they're actually taking by doing that work for such low pay.
And community health advocate Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz wants to see the physician's referral requirement removed from testing sites.
We need to open testing up so that communities in the urban core and communities of color can access testing and have the same chance of surviving COVID-19 as other communities.
The group plans to develop a series of multilingual public service announcements with a goal of reaching those who may have been left behind. And along those same lines, a group of community organizations led by and serving people of color here in Rhode Island announced the Rhode Island Solidarity Fund. Now, this is the Amore Network, Arise, DARE, the George Wiley Center, and PRISM announcing a one-stop option for community members and foundations that are seeking to contribute directly to frontline relief, direct action organizing, and systems change advocacy here in Rhode Island during the coronavirus crisis. A group of 150 restaurants calling themselves the Ocean State Coalition are calling on Governor Raimondo to allow for indoor restaurant dining by June 1st. They say in part that the restaurant industry has been one of the most severely impacted closures related to COVID-19, and as one of the most regulated industries for health standards, their goal has always been to exceed those standards for their guests. And finally, remember that Narragansett Town Council resolution that would have essentially rebuked all of Governor Raimondo's executive orders opening up restaurants, bars, beaches, whatever. Well, after public commentary last night and citing the fact that 3 councilors indicated on WPRO radio that they would vote no, the resolution was withdrawn from the council agenda. Narragansett not going against Governor Raimondo. Okay, it's time for Restaurant Week here on B-Town. Let's kick it off down in Newport with Sue Lamond of Salvation Cafe. You know, obviously, everybody, I'm sure it's been super tough these last few months trying to make something work. But I guess more specifically about, you know, any kind of reopening plans that you might have. So I don't know what's...
So it's pretty interesting. So we got I guess I wasn't expecting the ability to reopen to arrive when it did. I was pretty shocked, I guess. So then with given the ways you're allowed to, it was kind of confusing as to how to make that work. You know, we had just come out of a few weeks of trying to reinvent ourselves as a to-go place, and then we had to, now we have to reinvent ourselves as an outdoor place. We've always had some outdoor seating, but one of the things that's always been a problem is that if it rains, you're screwed. So before we would have more room inside so they could go inside. So now, what does outdoor mean? When they first said it, it was literally okay, you can start, Wednesday. And you looked at the weather and it was rain, 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 rain. So, we started to kind of get it together to hurry up and rush. And then we just decided that maybe we could let this first week go and see how other people do it. See what works and what doesn't, listen to what customers are saying, and try to just take our time and do it in a more patient way.
Right. And I guess, there are so many specific challenges from cutlery to menus to staff and masks to vibe, to capacity, that there are so many question marks about, is it even a worthwhile venture? I'm sure that you've asked yourself that several times, and that's part of the wait and see portion of things. I mean, part of it would also be if Broadway is shut down in Newport, you'd have expanded seating, I guess. But what are some of the things you're looking for, I guess, that would make this a worthwhile venture to get in on?
In a way, at this point, it's so wild, wild west that I'm not sure that I'm even able to figure out what works and what doesn't. I just either have to join and try to make it work or not, So in that vein, and it's funny that you say about the Broadway thing, because I'm investing in a tent for my parking lot. And it's, for me, it's pretty expensive. I'm not a huge joint. And I'm thinking like, okay, so I'm going to invest in this tent. And, the thing with the tent is like, if you can only have it up for 30 days, but you can keep applying, whatever. The initial, the first month is the most expensive. And then I'm thinking like, what if I invest in this tent and then they open Broadway? So then everybody else gets to, it's just, it's just a little confusing about what you should invest in and what's going to pay off. But at this point, again, it's so Wild West that God knows if anything's going to pay off. I mean, maybe we just have to go for everything and, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And that's not a comfortable place for a business person to be in, generally.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get the sense that your customers are ready to come back and jump into whatever you throw at them, so to speak, whether it's a tent or on Broadway or in the backyard, whatever it is? Do you feel that's ready to go?
It's funny because one of your, you did that poll that 84% of people weren't ready.
Good Lord.
And that's another gamble. Talk about all these risks we're taking. Some of them are actual, investment risks. So we're making a whole new menu. We're changing up beverage service. We're, trying to appeal. And then there's another risk that maybe people don't feel like going out. I mean, it's up to them. I think that all I can do is try to provide the soul of who we are in the way that we can provide it with, given that we don't have a ton of capital to reinvent ourselves, but try to do it in the kind of way that we've always done salvation, which is, a little bit by the seat of our pants to start with. But with this, with this additional part of being really careful that people are safe from customers to staff too. And, one of the things about that too, is like, I was like, I see all these things. I don't know if they're really who we are, but I just see a lot of people like being upset about being asked to wear masks and stuff like that and policing each other. And that scares me too, so I wonder if like I shouldn't, put huge signs of, I'm a libertarian, like if you don't want to wear a mask, I get it. But I've talked to my staff, I've talked to, whoever, like and then the state says what they have to do. Like, you have to wear a mask or you just can't come in. Like, I don't want to fight about it. Like, if you don't want to, I get it. But then that's just isn't, then we're not your place. I don't want to go looking for fights. That's what I'm worried about a little bit. But that might just be more of a social media caca thing than a reality.
I think so, because I mean, I hope so. You would assume that people at the basic level would, just out of respect for the restaurant and the staff, comply. I wonder also, Newport is, it's been interesting to watch Newport through this whole process, kind of the soft cancellation of the parade, and then the council, Mayor Bova kind of was the deciding vote, and then the parade was actually not canceled, and then the governor had to step in. It's sort of been, there hasn't been a clear stance on a lot of this stuff. In fact, a listener sent me some photos of the landing, which was open this weekend, I guess, and totally packed. And the photos I saw, I mean, pretty wild. Yeah, I have, and you think, wow, well, that's not particularly fair, while other businesses are investing in infrastructure like tents or trying to figure out how their to-go operation is going to continue. Do you get the sense that Newport, the city, not so much the Chamber of Commerce, but the city is navigating this well from a business standpoint? Not to throw people under the bus, but is there anything that they can do to improve the outcomes of this as we move forward through phase 1 and 2?
I mean, I have to say, in my opinion, I'm so used to this city being super tough, and I live and work on Broadway, and Broadway has always had a little bit more leeway because we're not historical. And, that was one of the reasons why I ended up opening there, because it just had a lot more freedoms than, most of Newport. I think what's really cool about this is, I think the city's actually doing a really good job. I think they're giving a lot of leeway. I mean, maybe I hear people saying that, maybe they feel like they're not giving them enough direction, but I'm not sure that they can. And I think that what's kind of fun about the way I've been lucky with my business and my customer base is that part of the job is to figure it out yourself. I mean, having said that, I don't want to invest a ton of money and then have it be a mistake, but no one knows, no one knows what's going to happen. I mean, I was just talking to my friends when we just went to the Matunic Oyster Bar. I said, I hope I almost hope like the people that are kind of being naysayers and saying you don't need to wear a mask and whatever are right, because, like, it would be cool to not be spreading stuff. It'd be cool if it was overblown. It would be, I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I don't want to put anyone in danger. I certainly don't want to put my staff or my customers in danger. I don't know, like, I'm a leader in my own world at the restaurant, and I don't know the answer. So, the city council doesn't know the answer. The city managers don't know the answer. But I think that one of the things I think is really cool is that I think they're allowing us a lot of leeway to find our way. But I do think that if we screw up, if we do something bad and people are going to point at us and be mad about it, they're going to shut it down.
Right.
But I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I think they're letting us do as best as we can. That's my opinion.
Classic American ingenuity, I guess, I suppose,
Yeah.
if nothing else,
Yeah.
Last question. Let's say the summer comes and Broadway shut down and it's more of a locals versus tourist market. Do you think that there is, not even necessarily in terms of reduced capacities or anything, is there enough of a local market to sustain Newport's restaurant industry without a big infusion of tourist dollars? Not just Salvation, but broadly.
No, just no. I mean, the answer is no. I mean, and that's a bigger story. That's about what's happened to the real estate market. That's about, second home buyers and stuff. I mean, Newport, it's just such a hard place to buy into, to be a stakeholder in, like I always people always talk about the North End. I think what would be really cool about the North End would be to be able to build like a first home townhouse group that people for like $300,000 could buy a house that would actually not just rent to, from some commercial developer, but could actually buy a piece of property that they could, collect, start building equity. And, whether if it was their first home and they moved on later on, or if they, stayed there, we just don't, it's just, it doesn't, I've been in business for 27 years. And the local market and the winter market compared to the summer market have never been more polar opposites than they are now. And even to the last couple of years where it extended to weekends and weekdays, that, there would be like a weekender that has a, and I'm not trying to be a, classist or whatever, that, rich people shouldn't buy their houses here, but they live in Boston, work in Boston, Sunday through Friday, and then come down for 2 days. That started to really show in the last couple of years. Even in summertime, weekdays were so much weaker than weekends. And then you get the, the feast or famine that drives everybody crazy. So yeah, I don't think that there's enough local traffic to make it work. I really don't.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And I do agree that, this will be an interesting moment for Newport to reconsider at some level. And again, it's, Newport, you can't say, all right, New York and Boston folks, sorry, you're out of here, because that will also pull the rug out from underneath the city. But yeah, just finding that balance.
And I grew up here too. And I think that was what was really fun about the island was that, like you would be like the local place in the winter, but then also you would have this influx of like summer people, and it would be fun and exciting. And then, sometimes you'd meet people and go, it was just, it was almost like a tide kind of, and it was cool to be both, and I feel like people are like kind of making it either or. And I think that what I loved about growing up in Newport was that you could be both. You could be a groovy townie, and you could also meet some weird person that you never would have met in any, if you lived somewhere that there wasn't a huge influx of people from all over the world every season, you know?
Couldn't agree more with that.
This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
All right, let's head to Bristol County for a conversation with Dunkin franchisee Chris Prazeres. Dunkin' Donuts, it's let's face it, it's a Rhode Island institution. There's no other way around it. Each individually owned franchise has its own pulse. There's no question about that. Can you kind of just talk about, first of all, what your franchises are, where they're located, and then we can get into some of the broader things that Dunkin' is doing to, or has done, and will continue to do likely, to adjust here in the new normal, as we're calling it?
Yeah, sure. So my family's been in the Dunkin' business since 1989. Our shops right now are in the East Bay. We're in Barrington, Warren, and Bristol. So it's kind of it's a great little spot of the part of the state. You know, of course, with everything that's going on now, we kind of miss the normalcy of it. You know, the Bristol 4th of July parade, the fireworks, everything that's going on, Memorial Day parades, and everything else. But it's some great towns that we're involved in.
No doubt about it. The 4th of July parade, I mean, there's some people who are like, it seems like they're legitimately devastated about it. I even saw one group that says they're going to march anyway and do their own type of version of it, whether or not we'll see what happens. All right. So Dunkin' has eliminated, I'm going through a list here, eliminated all dine-in options and strongly encouraged mobile ordering. That's interesting. You know, that's something that obviously there's been a Dunkin' app that has been around for a while, but I wonder how much, you know, the franchise is, the brand is leading that sort of conversation, and we'll see even smaller restaurants start to adapt to pre-ordering and curbside pickup and so on and so forth. Can you talk about the success that you've had with that and how it's factored into your ability to continue to serve your customers?
Yeah, sure. So this has been an initiative that has been in the works for some years, as you mentioned, Bill. But, you know, certain circumstances kind of catapults practices, right? So now, I mean, we were not struggling, but we were certainly focused on increasing digital ordering and our customers going through the app for various reasons, loyalty being one of them, targeted marketing being another. And, you know, we always struggled with what's the best way to get more and more people to use the app, for instance. And, you know, it's interesting. Now given the circumstances that we're facing right now, it's almost like there's a reason now to go with, you know, contactless delivery, payments. So it's almost like the process has been streamlined now, you know, given what everybody's facing right now.
Let's talk about employees, because right now, one of the main concerns, certainly something I'm focused on and plenty of people are focused on, are frontline workers, especially low-wage workers. Dunkin's implemented a brand-wide standard that requires single-use gloves, non-medical masks. Can you talk about what else is going on from an employee's perspective, at least inside your franchises?
Oh, absolutely. So our biggest concern and goal was two things. Number one, to keep our employees safe and to keep our employees working. So, you know, we definitely have been following the mandates from the governor here in Rhode Island, but we've put in some sneeze guards, plexiglass guards for the stores that we have with, you know, where a customer can actually walk in and get their order for takeout. You know, we have been ultra focused on cleanliness, wiping down whatever station that you're working at as often as you possibly can. You know, and I think it's skills and hygiene that, you know, have always been there, but I just think that there's a little bit more of an emphasis on it now. You know, just so that the employees can feel safe, and our customers too. If our customer comes in and they can see that we're constantly wiping things down, I think that creates a confidence in them to say, hey, you know, this is a clean establishment. They're doing everything that they can. And ultimately, I'm going to be comfortable to come here and get my coffee.
I think that's one of the biggest things right now, is instilling consumer confidence. Look, I'm not Darrell West or Quinnipiac here or anything like that, but I did a poll the other day of a little over 500 Rhode Islanders responded. It was just about a 2.5-hour window. I just posted something on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I think I got 580 responses or something like that. 84% said that they would not go out to a restaurant during phase one. But you drive by a Dunkin', you do see plenty of activity, certainly here on Elmwood Avenue, and it's there seems to be a level of consumer confidence with the brand. Do you think that's something that is people assume that a larger brand has got it figured out better than a smaller restaurant, or is it just that there's those relationships that you have with your local franchise? I mean, it may be a combination of all that.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, I think it's a combination of both. Most of our customers are repeat customers, and they develop that relationship with the person who gives them their coffee in the morning, makes them their coffee, and serves them with a smile. And I think that that plays into it, certainly. Again, behaviors are changing. They certainly are. There's no question. Our locations that have drive-through and takeout, it used to be 65% of the business was through the drive-through. Now it's 90%. So I think as customers, they still are apprehensive about dining out and going out for food or beverages or coffee or what have you. But they're still coming. They're still coming, and they're coming on their own terms, on however they feel more safe. If they feel safer going to the drive-through or doing on-the-go orders, which is an increasing part of our business now, and a lot of Dunkins now have included Grubhub, Uber Eats, and some delivery services.
Right, and I guess there's some kind of merger happening there. I don't actually know off the top of my head. I just saw a headline, but between Grubhub and Uber Eats, I wonder what that'll look like in the future. You know what I mean? If let's say 3 years from now, I mean, it's hard to imagine that. Sometimes we can't even look 3 hours ahead in this crisis. But are you trying to build some models that are, essentially going to position your franchise, the brand as a whole, for the next wave of consumption, where someone might wake up in the morning, use the Dunkin' app, order their hash brown and vegan sausage sandwich, if you're me, and have it delivered by somebody on a bicycle in 5 minutes? Is that something that potentially, you're working? That specific example is probably not exactly right, but
when we
generally.
deal with the delivery service specifically, our task is to prepare the order, and then it's up to the delivery service to provide that to the customer as efficiently as possible. I think for us, I think that our drive-through volume is going to hold here for a while. I think it may not stay at 90%, like I just mentioned. It's probably going to come down to 80, but 80 is an increase from the traditional 65% that we saw. So we're going to have to create a focus on delivering the best possible way we can through the drive-through, meaning we got to be accurate, we got to be efficient, we got to be fast, and we got to be friendly. So we really need to, because now, when you have a lot more customers coming through the drive-through and they see a line out to the street, a customer that's kind of in a rush is going to be like, I'm not going to wait in that line. So the goal is going to be to maximize your throughput, but minimize your wait times, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
You can drive by and say, hey, there's only got 5 or 6 cars in the drive-through. They're quick. I came here yesterday. They were really quick. I came here the day before. They were quick and fast and friendly and accurate. I got my order accurate. You know what? I'm going to go there again. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on coming out of this.
Really fascinating. A friend of mine once said that one of the biggest mistakes he ever saw in business was UPS, FedEx. Now that Amazon has their fleet of vehicles driving around, my buddy said, well, imagine if UPS just simply opened up a warehouse full of goods and built a website portal for people to order them. They would have been able to be so far ahead of Amazon as far as that segment. So it's like sometimes it's right in front of you. I wonder, I just wonder if the drive-through is going to change, and it would obviously be a place like a Dunkin', that has, I think, the widest probably of the drive-through restaurants, at least here, that seems to have the widest demographic. It'll be interesting to see the response and how you tweak it, and the innovations that come out of that.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We can only control what we can control. So, as long as we have the proper staffing, and we definitely have our workers are top notch. I can't say enough about them given this whole situation that we've been experiencing for the past couple of months. Our employees are absolute rock stars. And, and it's just going to be a matter of focusing on delivering the best possible experience to the guests.
Let's talk about some of the philanthropic responses that Dunkin's involved in here in Rhode Island. I'll give you the list I have in front of me: the Joy in Childhood Foundation grants to local organizations, the Dunkin' Coffee Break, local donations to hospitals and first responders. And by the way, sometimes those aren't even, things that get publicized or formal. Somebody just shows up with a box of Joe and some food, and it's still a donation, but it's nothing that's really publicized. And then National Nurses Day. I mean, things like that, obviously gets the brand out there, and it's a positive thing. I mean, but at the same time, it shows that, you have your finger on the pulse of the community. You're not oblivious to the situation that we're in right now.
Yeah. So that's the one thing about Dunkin', and one thing that I'm particularly proud of our brands is that, locally in our market anyway, and nationally as well, we've always been involved with some awesome organizations for years. Special Olympics is being one of them. The Round Food Bank, Hasbro Children's Hospital. It's just something that we are super proud of, and it's a way for us to. We don't really, of course, you like to get some notoriety to do it, but that's not what it's all about. It's really about getting involved in the communities with these people are our customers. They come in and buy our products every day. They keep us in business, and it's just a tremendous way to give back. And it's really refreshing to see that given times are tough right now because of what's going on with the pandemic, that we haven't really, we continue to do those philanthropic things. The free coffee and donut for Nurses Day last week was awesome. That was great. And, individual franchisees are taking it upon themselves, just like you mentioned. They'll go and they'll drop off a couple of boxes of Joe or a couple of boxes of donuts to, a medical facility, a walk-in facility. I think that's great.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and that's I've heard that. And sorry to cut you off there. But I've seen examples of that where a friend of mine who's an EMT, or another buddy of mine who was working on the Volunteer Emergency Response Corps. They were gathering the PPE out in West Greenwich. They're out there in these pop-up tents, putting together truckloads of masks and everything. And he mentioned to me that one of the franchises dropped off essentially what ended up being lunch for the day, coffee and donuts, but. It just speaks to, I think there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's some people who are, they look at brands and they forget that, there's an attachment to the community, even though it may not be a local restaurant or a local coffee shop, there's still that attachment to the community. So it's critical to remember that.
No question. And again, that's just something that we've been super proud of, and we continue to do that. And our foundation does a really, really great job. The Joy and Childhood Foundation, they do a great job. They've donated almost $50,000 to nonprofits in Rhode Island during this whole situation. So, which I am very, very proud of.
Last kind of area here, I guess, Rhode Island's business climate. We don't have to get into breaking that down. It's obviously a pointless thing to do right now in the midst of the pandemic. Anyway, it would make no sense. But do you find that there is, that you're in an environment that you can thrive? Because we hear so much negativity about this from small businesses in Rhode Island that, you see people posting on Facebook. I won't name names here. I won't get into who it is and whatnot. But, you hear that vibe. It's sort of like how people say, oh, this state, and they complain about General Assembly or whatever. Yeah. How true is that from your perspective?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be challenges. Whether you're small business, big business, obviously, small businesses is what I'm familiar with. And, I am of the opinion that, listen, let's control what we can control. Sometimes there are some laws that aren't necessarily all that favorable for small businesses, I'm just being honest here. Mm-hmm. But, again, we are in a position to thrive, just like you mentioned. So there's a balance there, and as long as, and regulations are there for a particular reason, it's really, ultimately they're looking to protect the consumer, and we want to protect the consumer too. Without consumers, we have no business. So, it's a balance. I'm of the opinion, like I said, we can control what we can control, and we do the best we can given the circumstances that we're given.
This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
All right, coming home to Providence here for the Great White Electric with proprietor Tom Tupin. I saw the improvements that you were, I guess you call them improvements, the adaptations that you were making to White Electric's interface that was definitely designed to both protect and, sort of create a vibe of safety for both customers and for staff. I guess if you could just talk a little bit about some of the infrastructure changes that you've made to the shop.
Yeah, so I started off, we had an old bench in the back, a church pew. And since when we shut down, I figured, you know what, I've always wanted to get that out of here because it's been so big. So I loaded it in my truck, took it home, started taking it apart, and kind of just saw like this nice puzzle piece that I could build out of it to kind of protect the employees with plexiglass and actually make it look like a nice, maybe like old 1930s bank, like a bank teller station.
Yep.
Started off building that. That came out great. I was pretty psyched on that. And then I built like this wall in the middle for the customers. They can kind of come in, see numbers on the floor and kind of follow the flow, like really organic, kind of make it comfortable so they didn't feel like they were in the middle of a pandemic. Kind of just want to keep it like White Electric, kind of just cool and, community based. Then I ripped everything apart because it just wasn't good enough. So I moved the employee area out another 4 feet to give them a little more room. Then I ripped down the wall in the middle for the customers because I found an old wall that used to be here back maybe 15 years ago. I don't know how long you've been coming to White Electric, but there used to be this big wavy poster wall in the middle of the shop. And I dug that out of storage and put that back in. So now I'm feeling good. Now the shop, it looks good. I'm comfortable. Slept last night a little bit. So just moving forward.
And you're planning, obviously it's not May 18th that was your target date. I think I saw June 1st or something thereabouts. Is that kind of, you're moving a little bit slower than some other spaces have been? Is that just to make sure you've executed the design properly and have all the pieces in place? Is that kind of the end game there?
Yeah, I've even moved it back a little further. I think we're going to go like maybe that week of June 1st, so maybe Wednesday, Thursday, kind of feel it out. I want all the places to open up first that are in a hurry to open up and see how that goes. I don't mind coming in last, give it another 3 weeks, whatever we gave it, just to maybe figure out some more things. Let my employees get a little more comfortable with the community. Maybe they start going out, then they'll start coming here feeling more comfortable. So,
right.
That was the plan.
White Electric is, for me anyway, I've had so many meetings there and it's like a place where, you have great coffee, bagels, sandwiches, etc. But there's also the element of that it's a community hub. And that's probably the element that's going to be the most challenged during this period. What are you doing to sort of adapt that in any way, shape, or form? Obviously, you can't have 15, 20 people congregating inside the cafe anymore. So what sort of role are you taking in community building in all this?
Well, the reason I changed the wall in the center was because a lot of business does happen here and a lot of flyers go up on the walls. A lot of community events are always being posted. So putting up this poster wall, again, will allow people to put up their posters so you can walk by and kind of see what else is happening in the town rather than just, I feel like right now we're cut off from our community. We don't really know like where the local art shows are or where all these things are happening. And maybe there are links online. I mean, I get that. But a lot of it is while you're waiting in line, you're kind of seeing and looking like, oh, that's something I never would have even looked up on the internet, and that's interesting to me. So that's why flyers are still a popular thing in communities like ours. As for like people meeting up and talking, White Electric, everyone comes here, and a lot of people don't come here because they know if they come here, they're going to see 5 of their friends and they're going to get stuck talking. So they're like, so I kind of don't come to White Electric anymore. Which at one point I'm like, well, that means a lot of people are coming, and on the other side, it bums me out that people feel like they kind of stay away a little bit because they know too many people here. People are going to say hi. They're going to have to wave and take it outside. We're going to set up tables and chairs out front, set it up. All of our neighbors said, go all the way down the sidewalk if you need to. So we're going to definitely buy some more chairs and spread everything out and let people talk if they want to talk.
Yeah. I miss it so much, to be honest with you. And you get a lot of intel. For me as, a musician and growing up in the Providence arts community, the the stapled posters on Thayer Street was where I really began to understand that communication level. And then I lived in Brooklyn for a decade and spent a lot of time doing that strategy as well. And then here in modern times in Providence and Rhode Island at large, there really aren't a ton of places where artists and people in the community can communicate through postering, at least not in the traditional sense. White Electric, it really is a bulletin board that gives a lot of information about what's happening. You really can get the pulse of the community from both the bulletin board and from conversations with staff and people in the cafe. So, I definitely feel it missing from my life, no question about it. So that's relieving to know it'll be back.
Oh yeah. That was an important thing to get back for sure.
You've been doing some to-go sort of prepped coffee orders and things of that nature. How's that gone?
That it's really gearing up now where it's kind of getting to be a 2-person job. But yeah, I've been doing deliveries. I got Dash, Bicycle Messenger, helping me out. He's doing all the deliveries around town, Providence. I'm doing C19, East Providence, and Barrington, and Warren, anywhere I can drive to try to just keep income coming in was basically the plan. And then on Sundays, we do a pickup right now. So people can order bagels from Providence Bagel, cream cheese. We do half gallons of iced coffee. And that's really been getting pretty huge. Like we started off the first week was 30, and I remember 30 orders. And I remember thinking like, all right, if I have to do this, I can probably survive a little while doing this. And now we're up to, 100 orders every Sunday. I ended up bringing an employee back to help me out on those days. And it's fun. It's great because you see so many faces and so many people are so happy just to drink White Electric coffee.
Yeah.
It's a humbling experience for sure.
What's your, we see some restaurants in Providence that are, in fact, there was a petition that came out to just today, 150 restaurants in Rhode Island that they're calling themselves the Ocean State Coalition. They're demanding essentially to reopen fully with indoor dining by June 1st. Then there are others, such as others who are on this episode right now, like Salvation Cafe in Newport, that are really focusing on innovation, whether it's through a tent or just exploring ways to kind of, not have to rush back into service, but also be open for their customers. And then there's also Nolan's in Providence, where Brendan has indicated he's going to hold off as long as he can to reopen. So there's sort of different positions. I mean, do you sense that there's a right way or a wrong way to do things right now? Or is it just general common sense and safety that needs to drive every single space on a situational basis?
Man, that is a tough question. Because I do feel like, who knows? Who knows? And I just think that just being able to sell anything, just people coming in and leaving, is probably the safest bet. And I really want to focus on it very slowly. And maybe we just start off with drinks. Come in, get a drink, and leave. Maybe get a bagel, maybe get a donut. And really, I feel like spreading it out and being safe. I mean, are customers really looking to get into these places that quickly? I guess that's the question I'm asking myself. Like, yeah, I want business to be back to normal, but I just feel like people aren't ready for that. And I don't know. The West Side is definitely like an intelligent side of, I don't want to say an intelligent side of town, but there's intelligent people over here. Our customers are just intelligent. I feel like they're not looking for a place to come sit down. They want to get what's normal and get back to, what's the safest thing right now is kind of being away. And we all go grocery shopping. We all know we're getting back to we're getting back to normal, but baby steps for sure. Yeah,
I agree with that. And I don't want to be pessimistic, but it does seem like, a facility is taking a risk if you rush back in that, not that you're necessarily going to trigger a massive outbreak, but you run the risk of, if you move too fast, having to go backwards. And that obviously would be more devastating than taking it slow, in my opinion, unless you're in such economically dire straits that, you have no chance of survival without these next 2 weeks, I guess,
Yeah. I don't know. There's a liquor store that I used to go to, and they refuse to wear masks in that liquor store. And I just don't go anymore because you need to wear a mask. So, they just lost my respect. So I don't want anyone to, lose their respect for us.
Couldn't agree more. All right, last question. If someone wants to right now pre-order, someone, especially me, wants to pre-order coffee or anything like that, I know there's the Sunday operation. Can you kind of describe that? Like if you want to get get coffee, not necessarily to go, but sort of like in the next couple of weeks before you reopen, what is that like? Is there a web form for people to fill out, or they just call you?
Yeah, no, you go to whiteelectriccoffee.com and you go to the products page, and then you'll see everything we offer from bagels. You can get 6 bagels at a time, and then we offer the homemade cream cheese from Providence Bagel, 1/2 gallons of iced coffee, 1/2 gallons of cold brew, which is taken off. People love to just have it at their house, which is great. And then we do ground coffee. So simple, but still you get your White Electric fix. And that should tide us over until we're ready. Because, man, I didn't have iced coffee or any White Electric. I mean, I had White Electric coffee through my drip at home. But the first time I actually made the iced coffee here to sell it, it was just like a relief. I was like, okay, this is like a normal,
This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
Discover over 200 episodes of the Bartholomew Town Podcast, conversations with Rhode Island politicians, media members, and other cultural figures at ripodcast.com or wherever you get your pods.
At HealthSource RI for Employers, we provide access to health insurance to more than 1,100 local businesses and nonprofits, and 96% of them renew through us every year. Maybe it's our choice of 19 different health plans, our 10 years of customizing solutions, or our one local team of dedicated experts helping employers find quality health insurance. See how our numbers stack up for you. Learn more at healthsourceri.com/employers.